I recently just rewatched the Rob Zombie Halloween movie, the first one, and the second one I believe I had never seen. I'm pretty sure because when I saw the first one in theaters almost 20 years ago, I didn't like it. I think it's because it came out around the time when Hostel and Saw came out, and there seemed to be a shift in horror where it was like violence, blood, like tons of nudity, which nudity is like historically has always been a part of horror, but it just seemed to amp it up, and I'm not really there for that. And so I thought it'd be kind of interesting to revisit the movie. Well, I thought it'd be cool to revisit both of them just to see almost 20 years later, do I still feel the same? Or do I like them now? So Rob Zombie, these are actually the only Rob Zombie movies that I've ever seen. I need to watch his other ones, but he obviously is a musician, but his aesthetic is very like horror. And so even though I'd never seen any of his other movies, I knew what his style was. His style is very like gritty, very violent, tons of nudity. And so when you go and see something typically that Rob Zombie does, you know what you're getting into. He did recently, I don't know, in the last couple years do The Munsters, which I thought he was going to do his Rob Zombie take on it, as in terms of like, I thought he was going to make it into a Rob Zombie horror movie. And I haven't watched it, but I did see the trailer for it. And it looked very family friendly, so I was confused. But going back and seeing the first Rob Zombie Halloween, it has more substance than I remember. And now with it being so long after, it has a feel of nostalgia for me, which obviously it didn't have in the beginning. It was very fresh, very different from previous Halloween movies. But I think now, looking back at it, I appreciate what he was trying to do with the movie, and I think is a genuine good movie, at least the first one. It really is its own thing, and I believe it's worthy of the Halloween franchise. What really prompted me to watch it was I subscribe to the Talk Scary to Me podcast on Patreon, and it's hosted by Danielle Harris, who played Annie, and Scout Taylor Compton, who played Laurie. And they talk about it all the time on there. They have guests from the movie. They're really good friends in real life. What's really sad is this past week, they ended their podcast. And it feels abrupt and not abrupt at the same time. In most recent episodes, especially, like they're both really busy. Danielle has kids, just 2 sons that are kind of around my daughter's age. But she always talked about the fact that she loves the podcast and she doesn't want to stop it. So not long after they put out this week's podcast, they posted and saying like, there's not going to be a final episode. We're canceling the podcast. And so even though it like makes sense because some of the things that they had been saying about them being so busy and not having enough time and like needing rest and needing to spend quality time with their family, it is abrupt because like, I don't know. They're like, there wasn't any warning, and people are like, I hope your friendship is good and all this stuff. Danielle's supposed to be releasing a memoir, which I really want to read, and she has a Patreon, and what I would love to see is for her to do her own podcast maybe, because I became a fan of Scouts after watching the podcast, but I've been a fan of Danielle since I was a kid. And I would love to see Danielle do a podcast because like I'm gonna miss like hearing about her life on a weekly basis and getting a glimpse into all of that. So if she did her own podcast, I would subscribe to her Patreon. But right now I'm catching up on all the episodes that I was binging them like a couple weeks prior to them announcing that they canceled it. And now I want to watch the rest before I cancel my Patreon. But logging into it now, it's like, oh, I know there's not going to be any more, so it's just sad. The first part of the first movie was really rough for me to watch now, having a kid. Way back then I didn't have any children. And so now watching the young Michael Myers and how he became the Shape is really hard for me to watch as a mom, because like I just think about my 6-year-old and I just, you just want to protect them. And seeing him having such a rough childhood because his mom brought around, like, I was gonna say a lot of men. You see one man in particular who is very like abusive verbally to everyone in her family, the mom's family. Who knows what else he's experienced in the past. His behavior kind of shows like he's been messed up for a long time with like how serial killers like always start with animals and stuff. But even though he's starting to devolve, he has this humility towards his, oh, I guess I'm getting right into it, and not in like, this movie's over 20 years old. There's spoilers. I'm kind of breaking it down and telling my thoughts on everything. So if you haven't seen the movie, and you don't want anything spoiled, go watch the movie and come back and, then watch. As he's devolving, he still has a lot of humility towards his baby sister and his mom, not his older sister, his baby sister and his mom. And I get so sad for the mom character, because even though she wasn't the best mom, you could tell that she loved her kids. And even though she let bad men into her house, it seemed like she was doing her best, but she also had her problems. And it's wild because after he kills his older sister, his mom's boyfriend, the kid at school, it's almost like when he's in the asylum, he almost compartmentalizes. It's like when he has the mask on, he's the the killer. When he doesn't, he's like, I don't remember that. I don't remember anything. But for the mom, you see this in real life too with true crime cases. The mom will still, or the family member will still go visit the person in jail. Like the Thurston school shooter, the sister like still thinks that he should be set free when he killed her parents. There's so many other examples of this too. There was another one about this guy, Charlie Brandt, I think was his name. He tried killing his whole family and his gun jammed. He killed his mom, and his mom was pregnant, so the baby died. And he went away for a little while, and then his dad welcomes him back home, and his sister the whole time, rest of the time that she's growing up, is like terrified. And then what this guy goes on to do later, if you've never heard about Charlie Brandt, look this guy up. I need to do a video on him. I needed to do more like true crime stuff, because I have so much I want to talk about with that, but like true crime and horror are so connected. When Michael kills again, the nurse in the hospital, the mom, like something in her snaps and then she ends her life. That was also so sad to me, because I'm just like putting myself in her shoes and how miserable that has to be, like, about what your kid did and you can't change it and you still love your kid, I guess. But it's like, what do you do about that, like with what your kid did? And so I guess it makes sense that you don't stop loving them, but like, where can you go from there? But the boy that played young Michael did do a really good job, I think, showing the early years, and that's something that we never seen before. And I think that's what this movie adds to the franchise. And for me, I always have questions, and I always want to know everybody's backstory. Like if there's a really good story or something, if there's a really good scene, a really good movie, and they kind of leave it at surface level or at face value, I'm like, at the end, I'm like, but no, like I want to know the backstory. I want to know every detail. And that was one thing that like later on, John Carpenter said that he didn't care for the Rob Zombie interpretation because he thought that he tried to explain too much. and that Michael Myers is supposed to be a force of nature or supernatural. But I like what Rob Zombie did. Nobody else has done that, and I think that he made a really good attempt. Later on in the movie, you see that Dee Wallace is in this, and if you are a 90s kid, you know Dee Wallace from so many things. E.T., Critters. Critters is a personal favorite. Cujo, which I could never watch Cujo because prior to having kids, my soft spot was for animals. I still love animals, but kids are my soft spot now, like being mom. I can't, it's hard for me to watch kids like being harmed in horror movies and reading about true crime stories involving kids, but yeah, I couldn't watch Cujo or Pet Sematary back in the day. I only recently watched Pet Sematary, and that was still rough. I had to look away at the kid scene, the kite scene, but she was really, really good in this, and it's cool because when I listen to the podcast, I hear about Scout and Danielle talking about their close relationship with Dee. And Dee is a really, like, I had a brief encounter with her at a con. I got a photo with her and I got her autograph. She really is super nice when you meet her. She called me Dimples because she saw me whenever I got her autograph on a Critters poster. And I did a photo op with her later on. It was my first horror convention I'd ever been to in Nashville. And when I did the photo op, she remembered me from giving me her autograph. And she's like, oh, hi, Dimples. And it's like, because I kind of have one here. But she called me Dimples. It was sweet. So she's a very nice lady. And also Tyler Mane, who played Michael Myers. I keep wanting to say Michael Jackson. Who played Michael Myers in this movie. He's really close with Scout in real life. And he officiated her wedding that she had recently. So those are really cool to hear about because sometimes you hear about relationships on set in movies that you love that were bad, and that kind of like taints it for you. Like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, the guy Andres Jones, who played Rick in 4 and 5, had a podcast. I think it was called Radio 8 Ball. I don't know if he still has it. But I was listening to an episode that he did with Lisa Wilcox, who played Alice, his sister in 4 and 5. And she was talking about how on set, in the shower scene at the beginning of the movie, the crew peed in the water that was supposed to be her shower water. It's like stuff like that I'm just like... And then I guess she had a clause about nudity, and they didn't honor that, I guess, in the beginning. It wasn't her nude, but like she had a rule that even her body double couldn't have like certain types of nudity, and they didn't honor that. So like just stuff like that. So when I hear about Dee Wallace and Tyler Mane being close to Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton, it makes this movie even better for me because going back and rewatching it, I like it more. And then these people really liked each other and became close offset, really adds to it. Even though I heard that the movie was really hard to make and that Rob Zombie had a hard time, and that because I guess the Weinstein brothers produced it, and supposedly I guess they were like on set and weren't easy to work with. That's just rumors that I heard. So I know it wasn't all great, but hearing the little things that you get to hear just make it better. And then Rob Zombie puts his wife Sherry Moon Zombie in all of his movies, and it's sweet because she's his muse. And even though I wasn't, especially the first time I watched this movie through, I was not a fan of her acting. I like it a little bit better on the rewatch. It's better than I remember. Danielle and Scout will say how reclusive Rob and his wife are when they're not working. I guess they don't have any kids, but they have like a property, like a farm or something, where they have a bunch of animals and they never go out into Hollywood unless it's for work. So like that's really cool that they're such a low-key couple that doesn't cause problems. They just want to make their art and then just be together and like have their life apart from Hollywood. And that is also really cool to know. Then Mr. Brad Dourif, Chucky himself. Well, he doesn't portray Chucky in this movie, but Brad Dourif is the voice of Chucky, and he plays Annie's dad, the sheriff there. When I watched this movie the first time through, I had no idea because I had never, I think at that point, seen what Brad Dourif looked like. He was just the voice of Chucky, but I love that he's in this. In this movie, there's so many cameos of people that I grew up loving, and that just endears this movie more to me. Malcolm McDowell of A Clockwork Orange, who played Dr. Loomis, I thought, and other people thought as well, like going back and reading some reviews for the movie, other people also thought that he was perfectly cast. He does play a really good Dr. Loomis. Scene where Michael Myers kills Laurie's adoptive parents, that is brutal because it is like they get right to it. Like right after Laurie leaves to go babysit, Michael Myers is like, boom, in that house. And it is rough. It is rough, but it's very effective. At the end of the movie, they do this like little video montage of like at the end where Laurie shoots Michael. Then they go to this montage of pictures of when he was a boy and she was a baby, and it's like such a juxtaposition of like present day and then the past, and it really brings out the humanity. And so I just really think that this first movie is very well done. On to the second movie. I'll just do them both in one video. Michael seeing his dead mom is very Jason Voorhees. And then the opening sequence where it's a dream, I can't decide if I think it's a good fake out or if it's a cop out. I don't know. I'm undecided on the opening. It's action packed, that's for sure. But for it to be like, oh, psych, it was a dream. I don't know. Unsure. But I love the dynamic between Annie, her dad, and Laurie, which makes it so heartbreaking when we see what happens later. And then another cameo. This movie has a couple cameos. Margot Kidder plays Laurie's therapist, and she is from Black Christmas, Amityville Horror, Superman. But she had a really, from what I understand, like troubled life. I think with, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't looked into her story in a really long time, but with like alcohol and mental illness, I believe. But I watched Black Christmas for the first time last year. Cannot believe it was the first time I watched it. Even though actually I would have watched it way earlier if I hadn't seen the remake first. The remake was crap from 2006. Oh, it was horrible. But the original Black Christmas, so good. Must watch it this Christmas if you've not seen it. And the psychic connection between Laurie and Michael is really interesting. I do think there's something to that in real life, where people have these like psychic connections to each other or just have like some kind of sixth sense ability to just know things. And it also kind of dives into if one sibling is violent, is there a predisposition for like other siblings to be violent? And then, how the second movie explores the psychological angle, I think is a good addition, where it's like showing the aftermath of what happened in the first one. But the dead mom threw me off, and I'm not sure if it threw me off because of the particular visual that they chose, like with her in all in white with the white horse. I didn't love it. They could have conveyed that some other way. But I do think the mom angle in general makes sense, with Michael being a kid when he committed his crimes, and then his mom ending her life and how that affected him, how he still had love for her and his baby sister. Annie's attack in the second movie was even more brutal than the first. And it was wild how in both movies she was still hanging on when Laurie found her, but then of course she doesn't survive in this movie. Both her attack scenes were so impactful, they gave me chills. But I have to say, the way, like when, in both Annie's attack scenes, when Laurie is like calling her baby, that always throws me off because I just feel like I never talk to my friends that way. I never even call my husband baby. The only person in my life I call baby is my literal baby who came from my being, So that always just throws me off. But it does sound kind of like hippie, which kind of lends itself to like Rob Zombie thing. So I don't know, but it struck me as a little odd. At the time, these movies were so violent, and now going back and looking at them, it just seems very like average now. And I feel like this movie and movies like it at the time that were shifting the horror landscape, I feel like were the blueprint for the next 20 years in horror, which I don't love. Like, yeah, Hostel and Saw made me question if I was a horror fan, but it just made me realize I don't like gore. But I can just look away, and I'm desensitized because it's so common now too. So something has to be really bad to make me squirm. Next cameo, Sean Whalen. You may not know the name, but you probably know the face. He was in People Under the Stairs, which I think is like lesser known. That might have been a Wes Craven movie. And then Twister. He was on the crew of the movie not the crew, but you know, the crew in the movie that chased the Twisters. He was in that. So he did like a little cameo as a Good Samaritan in this movie. I think Loomis's death was really brutal. And it's wild how he walks in thinking that he could just be like, stop, Michael. And it's probably because if you think about it, with people that work with kids who are violent, you still see them as a kid, even though what they did was really violent, and now they're an adult still doing violent things. It's wild how there's like they feel safe in some sense when they really shouldn't, and that was on display in Loomis's death scene. I mean, he walked in there with nothing to protect himself and got taken out. And Laurie's ending in this movie, I feel like, is kind of like Jamie from Halloween 4, which Danielle Harris played. You wonder if the experience and the genetics made her like Michael in the end. It is too bad that they didn't make this as a trilogy like I heard that they wanted to do. I guess the hangup was Rob didn't want to return. And I guess it goes back to with the rumors that it was hard for him to make and he didn't want to come back. Maybe a third movie could have brought the whole thing together, and I think it deserved a third movie. It's really sad that it didn't happen, but according to Wikipedia, the third one was supposed to show Laurie had killed Loomis instead of Michael. So that seemed to be what they were setting up. But when I keep wanting to say Blumhouse, but I guess it's pronounced Blumhouse. When Blumhouse eventually got the rights, they rebooted the series into a new trilogy, which is the trilogy that we just got. So the first one was initially successful at the box office, and then it like pretty quickly dropped off. The second one did not do as well financially. Neither were liked critically. And then other people also thought that The Mother and the White Horse were silly, but there was one review that I saw that said that they thought that it broke up the violence, and so they liked it. But I mean, violence and nudity are mainstays in a Rob Zombie movie, so you either love it or you hate it. But you know, I don't love it, but I know what I'm getting into. I'm gonna watch a Rob Zombie movie. But what I would love to see a reimagining to breathe new life and do the story justice. I did not like the last trilogy. I thought Rob Zombie's movies were better. And I think that they should get a director and a producer that are big horror movie fans. And then the key is they should bring in complete unknowns to star in a new franchise. Because I think that I'm not a fan of like one breakout star per generation stars in everything, you know, like let's put them in everything, like give somebody else a chance. And honestly, no matter how good somebody is, if they're super well known and you put them into a big franchise, I feel like it like almost taints or gives you an expectation and like already colors the movie in a certain way versus like going in fresh and having an experience and not having a preconceived notion before you go in just because of you know who they've cast in it. Bring in never before seen or at least not huge star talent to a brand new franchise, brand new Halloween franchise. I've always been a casual Halloween Michael Myers fan, but now I'm starting to kind of get into it more just because, I don't know, I always liked it, but I felt like the franchise was lacking. I really think that I'm onto something with my idea. If they did something like that, it would get me wholly invested in Halloween. I used to only care about the first John Carpenter Halloween, and it's still like a classic rewatch, just perfect. Love that movie. And then the third one had a cult following later on. It was panned at first because they wanted to turn the Halloween series into an anthology. And I like that idea. Honestly, I think that you could have a Halloween anthology series and then like the Halloween Michael Myers series. I think they both can exist. I don't think you have to have one or the other. They should go back and revisit that. Honestly, I would be all over that. I did really like Halloween 4 and 5 with Danielle Harris. 4 is better than 5, I think, but she did such a good job in those. Those also I'll go back and rewatch sometimes. The third movie of the most recent trilogy, my thoughts on it kind of seem to be similar to other people's. I like where they were going, but I feel like if they were going to do that, it should have been the start of a new trilogy rather than the ending of the current one. I really think they should have done a different idea for the ending of that particular trilogy. But honestly, like I said, could have been a great start to a completely new trilogy. And you know they're going to redo this. But just give us something better, man. Come on. Like, I am dying for some good horror stories. Sad. I'm sad that Halloween is almost over. It's like the first week of October, but right when it's like, for me, it's all about the anticipation. And it's like, as soon as October hits, I'm already sad because I'm like, it's the countdown for Halloween season to be over. Scully's going to stay up all year, though. I'm going to get her a little Santa hat, but I guess that'll be it. And I will see you in the next video.